Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me once again on the Roaming Prepper channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, in either in the premiere or below the video if you're on the replay crew. Uh, I had posted a couple of videos lately. One of them went viral, but it became controversial and people got ugly with each other. So be nice. Don't be ugly with each other in the chat or in the comments. Um, I think that's the first time I've had to do that in like 3 years or 4 years. I don't think I've done that before. I pulled one video down because I was actually wrong. I had bad information, and so it just, but I pulled it down like that same day. I was like, oh, that's video's not right, and off it went. But I've never had to mute a conversation on a video that went viral because people lost their biscuits with each other in the chat. They completely forgot about me. But in any case, it was interesting. But I do normally respond to those. That's a rare instance. Actually, it's the first time I can recall doing it. Um, don't forget to share. But go into our topic. Be sure to check these boxes. Well, what boxes am I talking about? Let's talk about some of the things we need to do when we have a hurricane, flood, tornado, because Houston gets hit regularly. Okay, Harvey was in 2019 or 2018. Ike was in 2008. We had multiple tropical storms that flooded the city. And then here comes Beryl 5 years later, and like the city has no idea. Like it was, the city was stupid. And I'm like, how the hell did that happen? It's not everybody, but there were a lot of people who seemed screwed up. And I'm like, and I know everyone's situation is different, but what's going on? So let me get the intro done, and then I we're going to talk about that and a few things you need to think about for a large scale, slow moving storm or incident like a flood or like a hurricane where you're kind of seeing it coming and it's just a question of which way it's going to turn. So I'll be right back and let's talk about that just a little bit. Well, welcome back, everybody. So, yeah, going back to Hurricane Beryl. So, what blows my mind is here we are, not 5 years after Harvey, and they had another hurricane a couple of years ago. And Houston is absolutely screwed up, and people are freaking out. There's all over the news. They're sleeping in their cars because of Hurricane Beryl. And I'm going to pull up an article here because this seems really silly to me. Um, because it's just like, what are you folks? What the heck? Okay, so here's a local. This is a New York channel reporting on Houston, which is kind of silly, but okay, let's share. Uh, Houstonians are sleeping in cars and selling valuables to survive power outages from Hurricane Beryl. Now, hurricanes can be bad, and not everyone in the city has the money to live in an area where it doesn't flood or the houses are better or whatever. And I get that. But when Hurricane Ike hit, they had in 2008, it had the same effect. It absolutely screwed up the power grid. And what's funny is the storm Ike we saw coming as well, but it was moving fast and everyone thought, oh, it's going to blow through. But the winds were so high, it actually tore the crap out of uh, out of the grid. Now, for those of you who've never been to that part of Texas or Louisiana, the coast is a lot of pine trees and a lot of live oaks, which have a very shallow root system. The pines are very deep root system, but when they get hurricane winds, unlike a palm tree that kind of bends, they break. So, like the top third of the tree and a lot of the branches just break off. It's like a failsafe for the tree, but they go flying into transformers. They hit power lines, and it just makes an absolute mess. The live oaks have a shallow root system. It's a bayou tree, right? So what it does is it gets hit by wind and the whole tree goes plunk, and the root system actually comes out of the ground. And it's really bizarre to watch a live oak come out of the ground because it just makes a big hole and then it fills with water and makes things worse. Um, but this is not uncommon. This has happened before, and it's happened recently in 2008 with Ike, and it happened again in Harvey. Now, Harvey was different because the majority of the heavy winds hit Corpus Christi. Houston didn't see it, Corpus got it. And Corpus is a smaller city, and it's surrounded by open area, so people just basically spread away from the city and then came back. Houston's kind of a metroplex, so a lot of folks didn't have anywhere to go. There are also a lot of folks on assisted living and limited income and fixed income who may not have a viable car. In the past, they had set up bus evacuations where school buses were available to go to certain locations and pick up civilians and take them away. I haven't heard of them doing this because the flooding hasn't been that bad. It's been the power. Hurricane Beryl blew through the city. Like, it was gone in 48 hours, but the winds screwed up the grid again, just like Hurricane Ike. Um, so there are few things we all need to think about when you have a storm like this, and this can be applicable to anything. We're talking hurricanes specifically now, but this can be applicable to anything. So for your home, uh, things you want to think about for your home: you want hard copies of your insurance papers. You want to close your windows. If you think you might get debris, you may want to board up your windows. I never did, but I lived an hour and a half from the coast on a hill, and I wasn't facing where the prevailing winds normally go. I was actually my the back of the house, it was the side of the house would face where the hurricane winds would come. It's just the way it was placed. But excuse me, but have those documents available and make sure you have uh, copies of your home insurance, your car insurance, medical insurance, or at least a photocopy of your insurance card. Even if you have one in your wallet, in case you lose the wallet, you can at least, if somebody gets sick, you can go to the hospital and, at least get your insurance to work. Now, if you don't have insurance, or even if you do, you want to make sure you have some cash. And if you can pull a couple of $100 out, great. If you could pull out more, that's fantastic. If you cannot, what I would recommend, create a hurricane coffee can. Believe it or not, there are still brands of coffee that have a coffee can, not a plastic thing or the stupid bag. It's the actual little metal can many of us grew up with. Clean one of those out or get another container and put 5, $10 a week. Okay, 52 weeks, $10 a week, 52 times 10, $520. That's not shabby. That's enough for a couple of days in a hotel, a couple of meals at a restaurant, and gas to get out of town if you need to. So, little things like that help, but make sure you have your paperwork in order for your house. If you have solar panels, make sure they are declared on your home insurance if you have home insurance that covers that kind of stuff. Because the solar company will not come out and replace your solar panels if they get destroyed or broken with debris themselves just because you had a storm. They just install and they sold you the product. Your insurance company covers the repair, but they need to know that you have it. If it's undeclared, you may or may not get covered. You need to understand that as well. Um, Also, keep in mind, if you have solar panels and you don't have a battery wall or a Tesla wall or whatever, or what the hell is it? The Blue Eddies, one of the Jackery type competitors. Actually, you can plug into your solar panels with like a wall mount, so it detects when the grid goes down and it reroutes to the batteries. Um, if you don't have that, your solar panels become useless. They have a failsafe to shut them down in the event the grid goes down. And the reason they do that is because the solar panels are stupid, right? They just receive light and they create electricity. But the linemen who eventually have to fix the lines don't want all this voltage coming down the lines. It's going to zap the guys. So all solar panels are designed, those residential panels are designed that if the grid goes down, they shut off, they disconnect from the grid. They stop contributing. So unless you have a battery wall, or Tesla wall, or whatever variation thereof, some way to store the product or the electricity, you're hosed. You can't do anything with those panels unless you go up there and physically wire them to something. And that can get scary if your roof's been damaged. So again, understand the necessities of your home. Now, speaking of the solar and the battery packs, your vehicle. Now, It's a no-brainer. When I posted that short that created a bunch of controversy, that was day 1, and I didn't do a good job of verbalizing where I was going with it, but it was 24 hours since the storm, and there were Teslas already in line and couldn't charge. And the gas cars could because the generators at the gas stations could pull the gas out of the tanks, but they didn't have enough power in those same generators to power the Teslas, right? So if you owned a Tesla, what you had to do is go and get like a 5, 10, 20 gallons of gas, get that home, turn on your own generator and try and charge your car, which was like multiple steps. But somebody did comment that a Tesla should hold its charge, the newer Teslas hold their charge if you don't use it for dumb things for days. If you're not driving around stupid, if you put it on economy, you can even plug it into your house and actually use it to power emergency things if you're really in a pickle. So, based on the feedback I got, there's no reason these people should have been out of power in 24 hours unless they just didn't take the time to charge their cars. But it's the same with gas. If you didn't fill up your tank, you're going to be in line with all the other people hoping that you get there before the gas tanks run out in the gas station. Remember, the gas trucks cannot pass blocked roads, so they're outside the city waiting to deliver gas. They can't do it. Also, remember a lot of gas stations, the rain and flooding will get water into the tanks if they don't seal them properly. And now the ground tanks are contaminated in a lot of gas stations and cannot be used. So you lose that as well. So understand, regardless if you have an EV or a regular diesel or gas, whatever, understand the limitations and prep according to what you have. I know a lot of houses have both. They have an EV for commuting and then they have like a Tahoe to drive to the country, whatever. That's not bad. That's kind of an all of the above, and I'm a fan of that. Again, I'm not against solar, but having a battery backup to the solar where your solar can go to the battery so you can keep CPAPs or dialysis machines or just the fridge running makes more sense. So understand your specific situation, what vehicles you have, and make sure that you've got the vehicle you ready to go if you need to leave or go get food or go to the hospital or whatever, or go to one of the food distribution points. So remember that. This is one of my pet peeves, and no pun intended. Hundreds of dogs were literally left in their yards during Harvey. The family left and left the pet. You can bring a pet to a Red Cross shelter. You can bring a pet to a food distribution point on a leash under control. If it's a cat, the cat probably ran off anyway. But if you actually catch your cat in a carrier, I rarely see a cat on a leash. They usually put them on a leash and they fall down and they won't get up because they don't like it. Um, don't leave your pets tied to a tree. That's horrendous. There were actually people who tied their pets with food and water and left them, and you're better off just leaving them loose because the dog can't swim if you've tied him down and he's just going to drown, and that's a terrible way for a pet to die. um, a lot of people just left them in the street. Okay, if your pet has been in your house and is not like an outdoor hunting excitement dog, it's your house potato, and you throw them out on the street, they're going to die or get hurt because they don't have survival skills. Even a good ranch dog, they ranch, they herd, they don't survive floods. But tying them to a tree where they can't even swim over the fence when the water rises, you're just dooming them to an execution. Um, my daughter had worked in the veterinary, one of the hospitals for animals in Houston. Her best friend worked at another one, and the number of pets they brought in that had been hurt, they got electrocuted because somebody left them in the yard. The power came down, the line hit the dog got zapped. Then the person went to help the dog. They got zapped. It's just account for your pets and also make sure you have enough water. When you calculate water for you, you need water for your pets as well. So don't abandon your pets. And if you have livestock, that's a little more complicated. Um, if you start flooding or you have a major outage with livestock, what you want to do is plan in advance and say, hey, maybe make an agreement with an ag group in one of the colleges or another farm and say, hey, I have horses or I have some livestock. In the event of a hurricane, Can I bring the livestock to you to be on this part of your farm? And you can work out a rental agreement where they agree, you pay whatever and you can keep your animals there. Work these things out in advance, but don't abandon your animals, okay? Especially when you tie them to a building and then the building floods, because you basically condemned it to death, and that's terrible. So don't do that. Um, Also, your basics. I just talked about water and food. So make sure you have food for your pets. And remember, if it starts flooding, you got to put that food up high or it'll get waterlogged with contaminated water. Remember, because it's going to overflow the sewage plants and that water is going to get everywhere. It's going to get into the food, into your open cuts if you have any, and infection's going to spread or you're going to make your dog sick. So put your food up high or get canned food. Um, Make sure you account for water, not just for drinking, not just for cooking, but you have hygiene. You also have flushing of the toilet and the pets if you have the pets. Okay, so you have to factor all this in because a lot of people buy a case of water. They're like, I got water for the hurricane. And now that you've just poured 10 of those bottles in the toilet tank so you could flush the toilet because you forgot about that. You don't need bougie water for the dogs. You don't need bougie water to flush the toilet or to take a shower with like a spaghetti pot and just pour water on your head and soap up and then rinse. You could use tap water, it's free. You just need a container suitable to carry a lot of it. So again, understand this stuff. Um, what I'm seeing, it blows my mind because it's not like if New York gets hit by a hurricane like New York City once every 20 years, like it's a whole generation before they really get a bad one where it floods and everything. And I think Sandy was the last one. And 15, 20 years, people forget what to do. Houston literally has tropical systems go every year, every other year. This is not new. And I know a lot of people tried to do their best, but and also I think the news media is making a scene of it because this is exactly what happened during Ike in '08. Happened again in Harvey, and people are just freaking out. So, folks, if you live in a hurricane or flood prone area, typhoon, for those of you who live overseas, if you live in a place that will flood, get landslides, etc., these tips apply to that as well. Even a forest fire or a grass fire, you have to evacuate and you have pet food for your pets, food for you. Your cars are filled up or charged, depending on what you got. You have copies of your important documents. You basically can take the family photos, your clothing, your pets, your laptop, your documents, and your prepping book, which you should have a bug out book, and you get in your car and you get the hell out. Get out of Dodge. The same fundamentals apply to multiple scenarios. So anyway, folks, for those of you in hurricane country, that's a 101, a very brief, not as brief as I wanted, on how to do this, how to be ready for this kind of stuff. And you're going to forget stuff. So you're going to have to modify your approach on the fly. But what we're seeing here, people having no gas and no the cars are discharged not 24 hours after the storm hits. You didn't charge it before it hit. You were like, "Oh, it won't be bad," and now it's bad, and you just assumed it would be fine, and that's a failure to make a forecast on what could happen. Because what do they always say, right? They'll help us. Someone will help us. Who's the someone? You need to help yourself. Because I promise you, the cops right now are trying to keep crime off the street and prevent crime because nobody can see anything because everything's in the dark. Security's off, cameras off, lights are off. The bad guys will probably have a field day, and the cops are busy with that. Ambulance are busy with people who are actually hurt. Same with fire. Take care of yourself until someone can get to you, at the very least. Anyway, that's it for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for listening to me rant about what people do wrong. Anyway, don't forget, like, subscribe. Feel free to comment. God bless. We'll see you later.